Alright, we just got finished talking about how it is most reasonable to believe that life comes from life, and in the earlier video explained that it is impossible to prove that something is the case, and the word proof means to show that it cannot be any other way. But what we can do is, based on the evidence, come to a conclusion that is reasonable. And so that's what we're seeking to do. Today the topic is going to be called complexity. So we're talking about complexity now, and what, as we look into nature, as we look at everything around us, what's the most reasonable cause for the complexity that exists? Now we have various options. The first is that there is an intelligent mind behind the incredible order and complexity of the world. That's the first option. The second is that there is no intelligent mind before the order and complexity of the world. Only two options. Either there's a mind or there's no mind. There's no other options. And so what is most reasonable? Well, what we have to do is we need to look at the world around us, and based on that evidence we need to come to a conclusion that's most reasonable. Now we can't look exactly to nature because that's the subject in question. The subject in question is nature, and we don't know what the original cause was at this point. What the original cause was, whether it was a mind or not a mind. But what we can look at is what we do know. What we do know is that there is incredible complexity in systems like vehicles. You know, the car that you drive, or the car that your parents drive, or the car that whoever drives. They're very complex. They're very complex, and it requires an intelligent mind to put them together. You know, a dictionary, for example, has a lot of information in that book, and there's a lot of meaning in the words that exist in that book. And so what we do know is that an intelligent mind was behind the putting together of the languages, the putting together of the dictionary. And what we do know is that it is absolutely impossible for random chance, to put together something as complex as the dictionary. A saying often goes, well, could an explosion in a print shop create a dictionary? And so, a lot of people kind of scoff at those kind of remarks, but, the reality is, as something becomes incredibly complex, the chances that it happened by chance become incredibly minimal. There was a story of a man walking along a beach, and as he was walking, he found things in the sand, and he stopped and he noticed, hey, there's an arrowhead in the sand. Something that looked like, similar to an arrowhead, but, it kind of looked like a rock, and it was kind of smooth, and he wasn't sure whether it was an arrowhead or whether it was just a rock, So he was unsure at that point, and he continued walking along the beach, and he came across a cigarette lighter. And he saw that, and he knew, hey, this was a little bit more complex. This could not have happened by chance, And so he moved on, and then he saw a big telephone tower, and that was more complex again. And he reasoned to himself, okay, there is more intelligent life on this island. And so the basic idea is that as complexity increases, so does the intelligence behind that complexity. And so that's the basic concept, and that concept, is proven, it's tested. We can demonstrate that in the world in which we live today. As we look at the complexity of DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, as we look at that, there is so much densely packed information in that DNA strand, and that information has meaning. Now that meaning and that information, I believe, based on the evidence around me in the world in which we live, it must demand an intelligent mind, and I think it is unreasonable to believe that that amount of complexity could come about by chance. I think that is the option with the lowest statistical probability. Now, why would you pick the option with the lowest statistical probability? Why would you pick it? We don't even know if there is a probability of that taking place. And if there was a probability of that taking place, it would have the lowest statistical probability. It would be far more likely for an intelligent mind to have brought into the existence the complexity of DNA. Likewise, the cell. The cell is incredibly complex. It is full of all of these mechanisms. The most advanced car factory in the world is nothing compared to the cell. But yet, here it is, and functioning the way it is. And I believe that the complexity of the universe demands an intelligent mind. It demands it. Now, some say, hey, there is still a possibility that all of this could have spontaneously happened by chance. Well, even if that's the case, and I'm not conceding that it is because we don't know that, but even if that was the case, even if there was a possibility that the complexity that exists in the universe spontaneously came together through chance and through natural processes, the statistical probability of that taking place is far, 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 far less than the statistical probability of an intelligent mind bringing everything into existence. That's just the reality. So we have two options. Which one are you going to pick? You can pick the option where we don't even know if there is a chance, and if there is a chance, it's so minute compared to the other, or we can pick the most reasonable response, the most reasonable conclusion based on the evidence, which is that an intelligent mind is behind the complexity of the universe. So I'll leave you with that. Think about it. I believe at this point we've established that there is a life-giving, incomprehensibly intelligent entity out there that brought into existence the complexity of life that we enjoy. I'll say that again, a life-giving, incomprehensibly intelligent entity at this point of the argument. And so why does this entity have to be incomprehensibly intelligent on our part? Well, it's because nature itself is incomprehensibly complex at the moment. We don't completely understand the complexity of nature. We've barely scratched the surface. We don't even understand how the cell completely works in its entirety. And then let alone when we drill down into that, and when we scale up onto the universal scale, we've barely scratched the surface of knowledge. Therefore, the one who brought into existence this complexity must be incomprehensibly intelligent. And so he's life-giving, based on the evidence. It's most reasonable to believe that a life-giving entity brought into existence life, because that's what we observe, life producing life, and we never see non-life bringing into existence life. And it's most reasonable to believe that an incomprehensibly intelligent being brought into existence the complexity that we enjoy on this earth. So keep that in mind as we move on to the next subject. Stay tuned.